Hello. Today's guest is Norwegian Ambassador to Bosnia and Herzegovina, His Excellency Mr. Olav Reinertsen. He is active ambassador who wants to connect Bosnia and Herzegovina with Norwegian companies and founder of NBBA initiative. We plan to talk about Connecto conference, NBBA and other interesting things. Mr. Ambassador, welcome to Mostar and Herzegovina. And let's start with questions. Your Excellency, Connecto conference and B2B meetings is a continuation of the extremely successful conference in 2020 and 2019. You have started your mandate in Bosnia and Herzegovina in last year. How do you like Bosnia and Herzegovina so far during your mandate? And what are your impressions looking back at last year, taking consideration COVID crisis and doing business in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and how Connecto conference fits in all this?
First of all, Vedran, good to be here. Delighted to be invited. As you said, I've been ambassador now in the IH for a year. It's been a very active year, even with the pandemic. I've had the opportunity to travel extensively, meeting authorities, meeting businesses, meeting NGOs, ordinary people. And my impression of BIH is very much the impression I had before I came, because I knew BIH very well before. A beautiful country, beautiful food, wine, beautiful nature, your mountains, the little coastline outside Naum. But when we are here, first and foremost, a country with vast opportunities. Unfortunately, these opportunities are not fully exploited. We will come back to that later today. But as you rightly said, I have been active. One of the first things I did was to establish, for the first time ever, a bilateral business association between our two countries, Norway BIH Business Association, NBBA. We have already organized 2 webinars on clean energy and on tourism. We will hopefully post pandemic this fall or also organize physical seminars, conferences where the 2 business communities of Norway and BIH can physically meet. I would also say that when it comes to Interra and an initiative like Connecto conference, which this year will be a hybrid, both physical but also an online event. These meeting places are extremely important because, and this is the message I try to convey when I meet with business people, they need a network outside BIH, a source of channeling their ideas, services, proposals. And in that respect, any initiative like Connecto, NBBA, and where we, as today, can apply Interra as a meeting point, these are, examples of that. But again, a wonderful country. I have enjoyed it very much. This is my 4th or 5th time to Mostar. And the opportunities are great again, but we need to exploit those opportunities.
Yeah. As you said, such conferences are a good way to connect propulsive business people, and our intention is to do it from Bosnia and Herzegovina and diaspora of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and basically everybody else who would like to connect. What do you think, considering the obstacles of Bosnia and Herzegovina? Everybody's saying we are full of potential, But considering the obstacles that we have, that employers have in Bosnia and Herzegovina, is it possible to overcome them and to make something happen?
Yes, this is what I often hear is that the problem is always on a political level, but this is quite an important message I would like to convey. You have the current political structure. This is what it is. So the main question is, what can you do within the business community? I think economy has much to say and will be a driver for change. And I must say, not only as an ambassador and a diplomat, but my background is actually in business and finance. My master degree is in international finance. I didn't become a broker and rich. I became an ambassador, but that's okay. That was, but that's another story. The economy of BIH, I must say, I'm somewhat puzzled because I see that to define an economy as a proper market economy, that means that if you have an idea, a business idea, a business proposal, you can propose that to an investor, and you have access to risk capital. I don't see that in BIH.
Yeah, that's our main problem, basically.
And I have had meetings now with the 2 stock exchanges in the country, and I noticed that the overall liquidity in the capital market in BIH is hardly non-existent. For instance, the annual turnover at Sarajevo Stock Exchange, the annual for all companies listed, is less than a one trade in one Norwegian company, 1 day trade. That means that if you as an entrepreneur and you do have an excellent business idea, the only option you have is to go to the bank and ask for debt, ask for mortgage. There should be an alternative, and that is risk capital, to have at least to some extent a capital market where you could make your business idea into reality. Then, on obstacles, sectors like ICT, where certainly you are involved, Vedran. Yes. Tourism, BIH, it's quite obvious. Active holidays, agro-tourism, your wine, food, etc. Mountains, rivers, canyons, it is more or less for grab. Thirdly, you have energy, clean energy, green energy. I visited Trebinje earlier this week. I met loads of business people, local authorities. I also visited Lubinia. So for over 3 days, I was in East Herzegovina. They have sun 270 to 90 days per year.
Yes.
Why do they not exploit the potential for solar power?
They said that we have more sun than Spain in some years.
Exactly. Yeah. And the same goes for Mostar. This is the sunny part of Europe. So sometimes it could be too easy just to complain on the political structure or lack of political structure. They are what they are. Any change must come from inside, from the country itself, from the citizens, from the business. But I certainly believe that businesses in BIH, they have a critical role to play for change.
You mentioned that you visited entrepreneurs and business owners in Bosnia and Herzegovina. You for sure did it as well through NBBA initiative. So NBBA initiative is meant to connect businesses from Norway and vice versa in Bosnia and Herzegovina. So can you tell us a little bit more about NBBA? Why NBBA, and what do you see as a possible biggest advantage of Bosnia and Herzegovina in terms of investments? You said investments are very hard. It's very hard to find investors in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Through Connecto, we really would like to first engage diaspora of Bosnia and Herzegovina who have the money but mostly lost the trust to invest in Bosnia and Herzegovina, to regain that trust. But what are the possibilities that we have with Norway to increase the chance of success and some kind of agreements?
In your question and your brief account, in addition, you said it yourself. Norway and BIH, we have enjoyed excellent bilateral relations for 25 years, since this became a country. Politically, culture, exchange of students, in many areas. We have, as you say, a highly successful diaspora in Norway, the 8th largest diaspora. They will, of course, play a crucial role when it comes to business and doing business in BIH. But the problem, or rather the challenge, and I do like challenges, I enjoy challenges, that is also why I'm here. That is a remarkable limited trade between our two countries. So that was simply the reason why I took the initiative and established NBBA December last year. As I said, we already have organized several webinars. It should be a hub where the two business communities can meet, exchange ideas, exchange proposals, networking. Again, if BIH companies, regardless which sector, whether it is tourism, agriculture, food products, health products, ICT services, the messages needs to be conveyed to your Norwegian counterparts. This is where NBBA will play a role and is already playing a role.
It is.
Diaspora. Some of my colleagues have taken some concrete initiatives, amongst them my US colleague Erik Nelson. He is very much pushing diaspora trade, diaspora investments, diaspora involvement. As I said, we have a highly successful diaspora in Norway, BIH diaspora. They have managed quite well in Norway. That could both be a push and pull factor when it comes to brain drain of BIH, because this is also part of my ambition, namely to stop this, what I call the evil of brain drain, that young educated people, they do not pursue their ideas here in BIH, but they go to Croatia, to Austria, Slovenia, Scandinavia, Norway, and they find that here is, that is the area where they can make success and a reality out of their idea. This is what I would like to fight. But again, when you have a successful diaspora in Norway, that is also a factor that can actually pull people, even more people to foreign countries.
Yeah,
so,
yes.
But I see that in Terra, actually my ministry, we were the founding father of Interra.
Yes.
We see that it is a success now. We have startups coming up, preparing them for market. Not only BIH market, but also the competitive international global market. That makes me, of course, very proud. And I'm pleased to see that. And hopefully, these new ICT development companies you have in Intera that will meet their partners at the Connecta conference later this month, that they are able to access risk capital and further develop their businesses here in Mostar, in this region, or in BIH in general.
From Norwegian perspective and mindset, when we look back at COVID-19 situation, and basically COVID-19 gave us awareness of importance of digitalization and distant work, and by your opinion, when you look at the Norwegian people and of course, and diaspora of Bosnia and Herzegovina, is this a situation threat or opportunity for our economy? When you're looking at mindset of and mentality in business of Norwegian people, is it possible to make business with Norway through online channel at first and later on to meet, or it has to be more face-to-face?
Online is, I mean, these 1.5 years with the pandemic, everything has been online. The Norwegian economy has not suffered that much. And sometimes Norwegians, they feel more safe behind the computer than actually meeting people. This is the Nordic mentality. So an online, first meeting place is more than okay, and this is probably how we will pursue our business in the future. So I think the pandemic also has had some positive effects on how to do business for the future.
It's opportunity, basically.
Exactly.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And this year, Connecto, as we said, Connecto will be both online and hopefully physical, in person. And last year we had it only online, and it was a lot of companies, more than 370 companies registered. We expect hopefully same number this year, but practically you are active participant of life in Bosnia and Herzegovina. You're a public person, you're a political person, and you're aware of bulky apparatus of Bosnia and Herzegovina that we have here and objective difficulties that we have in business. So what do you think? Can Bosnia and Herzegovina nevertheless be the country and that will rise from all these problems? Or can we live in this parallel universe, ICT universe, where we do business with outside, we employ local people that will work for Norway, for all other countries, like 80% companies in Intera, I think now that are working abroad. So what is that direction when we take in consideration our country, obstacles, and are we building a parallel universe that will go all online, and in which direction will it go? I'm sorry, too many questions.
The questions are excellent, and again, your description is very well founded. I don't think that BIH should continue with status quo for another 25 years. Some change needs to happen. And I'm first and foremost talking about the economy. Next week, I will meet with some business leaders from major companies. The major companies in the country. Not to talk about business, but the economy. In order for BIH to develop, and I'm talking both physically, business with physical services and products, but also BIH as a potential online success. Reforms are needed. There has to be a reform of the education system. There has to be a reform partly in your economy. The tax system needs to be reformed. When people like me, ambassadors, are talking about reforms, why are we doing that? But then keep in mind that in my country, and this country, my country, is perceived as a successful country, we carry out reforms every single day. Major reforms in our health service, major reforms in our communication transport, major reforms in education. Even we have a reform currently in our foreign policy. Reforms are there to benefit the citizens of any country, to meet the future, to meet tomorrow, to be prepared for tomorrow. And those reforms I mentioned will eventually have an effect on your economy. Because one day donations will be less, and eventually they will disappear. Not because the international community is not ready to support BIH, because the international community will be there, always be there. Norway, as a friendly nation to BIH, we, rest assured, we are a friendly nation with BIH, and we will always be a friendly nation. But I would rather develop sustainable jobs through increased commercial cooperation than just pour out grants and donations, because that is not always the fastest way of creating jobs. Young people, they need to see that there is a bright future within BIH and not to go to my country.
Yeah, we have to decrease uncertainty in business for the startups, for young people, for everybody else who would like to engage. And we mentioned today many uncertainties. We mentioned access to finance. It's very uncertain in Bosnia and Herzegovina. You have to go always with debt financing. Uncertainty in bulky apparatus that we mentioned, and with all the country. So Connecto conference, to not go into that direction of this topic too much of Bosnia and Herzegovina, Connecto conference, we agreed together that is something that is trying just to make awareness of how important is all these topics, and access to finance, and investing, and openness to the market outside, because, as you said, donation will stop. Eventually, it will stop very soon, and what is next after donation are programs, very specific programs of development. And if we obey the rules of European Union, and if we fulfilled what we need in Bosnia and Herzegovina from the European Union, we would be already had access to all the programs that we don't have now. And I believe, and through Connecto and through everything, we are pushing the boundaries to get opportunity to get programs and investors. And I think that pressure from diaspora can make this happen. So, in your opinion, today's world is changing constantly. The future is something that is developing through digital all the time, digital media, artificial intelligence, machine learning, Industry 4.0. But when we are looking at the idea, we have Startup Academy in Intera, now 16 new teams, and they all have ideas that they will succeed in domestic market, in world market, if they can we compare somehow the value of idea of the team, startup team here in Bosnia and Herzegovina, in Mostar, in Herzegovina, as a developed country, as a developing country, and value of idea of somebody from Norway? What is, how can we compare it?
I think through initiatives like Connecto, like NBBA, where you mentioned these 16 groups of that are now newly established with you. The main objective should be that these 16 and all the others, whether they are based in the BIT Center in Tuzla or in ICBL in Banja Luka, other incubators where startups can grow and eventually be ready for market, it is about communication. It is about networking. Because they are sitting, as we speak, in Norway, young, smart people developing, but they are maybe, I don't know, not aware of what is going on as we speak in Intera, as an example. So, in the new economy, an economy without borders, a virtual future, because the future will be virtual. Initiatives like yours, and I mentioned already a couple of others, will prove to be, in many ways, the answer to this, because physical presence is not necessary. It is communication, convey the messages online, and then businesses will find each other.
Seems that bright future can be reached by Bosnia and Herzegovina, and we also believe that in Intera today. Basically, when we are taping this, we are celebrating 10 years of Intera. So, dear ambassador, for the end, if you have some kind of message for our audience, please say it. And thank you very much for your time. That is most precious resource. And thank you for the visit and talk in Connecto conference.
Well, many thanks, Vedran, for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to talk to you. And to sum up, BIH, which you have heard many times, a country with opportunities, but still unexploited. What can we do? Never lose faith. Never lose the energy. Change must come from inside. Let's together do something with the business communities working more closely together, Norway and BIH. And fifthly, the economy of BIH needs reforms. I will not impose any reforms on BIH, but I have certainly many ideas and proposals, and I can assist facilitating those reforms to the benefit of the citizens of BIH.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Vala.
Dear viewers, thank you all for watching. Please register to Connect the conference and see you on 27th of July.